In the shadows of ancient Egypt's golden age, no story captivates quite like that of Tutankhamun, the boy king whose life and death would become one of history's greatest mysteries. Born around 1342 BCE, during one of Egypt's most turbulent periods, his journey from obscurity to immortality would span millennia. The young prince came into the world as Tutankhamun, son of the controversial Pharaoh Akhenaten and his royal wife. His early years unfolded in the strange and isolated city of Akhetaten, where his father had moved the capital in devotion to the sun god Aten. The walls of the palace witnessed a childhood unlike any other, as the young prince observed his father's radical religious reforms that would shake ancient Egypt to its very foundations. But fate had different plans for the boy who would become king. At just 9 years old, following the sudden death of his father, Tutankhamun ascended to the throne of Egypt. The weight of the double crown settled heavily on his young head, marking the beginning of a reign that would last only 10 short years but echo through the centuries. Under the guidance of his powerful advisors, General Horemheb and Grand Vizier I, the boy king's first significant act was to restore the old gods of Egypt. Amun, the great god of Thebes, returned to his former glory, and the young pharaoh changed his name to Tutankhamun, living image of Amun. The capital returned to Thebes, and the temples reopened their doors as the priests regained their power and influence. During his reign, Tutankhamun worked to heal the religious divisions that had torn Egypt apart under his father's rule. The restoration stela, carved in his name, speaks of his efforts to rebuild the damaged temples and restore the traditional religious practices. The young king's advisors guided these political moves, understanding the importance of religious stability in maintaining peace throughout the two lands. Military campaigns were launched during his reign, though the young king likely remained in the capital while his generals led the armies. Records speak of conflicts with the Nubians to the south and the Asiatics to the northeast. In matters of state, Tutankhamun relied heavily on his advisors, particularly I and Horemheb. They helped him navigate the complex web of Egyptian politics, managing relationships with powerful priests, noble families, and foreign powers. Letters from the period show diplomatic exchanges with other great kingdoms of the age, including the Hittites and Babylonians. The walls of his tomb would later depict him in the traditional pose of a warrior pharaoh, striking down Egypt's enemies, though these scenes were likely more symbolic than historical. Despite his youth, Tutankhamun married his half-sister, Ankhesenamun, following royal tradition. Their marriage was painted on the walls of his tomb, showing tender moments between the young couple. Tragically, their 2 daughters were born stillborn, their tiny mummies later found in their father's tomb. But the young king's reign would be cut tragically short. Around 1324 BCE, at approximately 19 years of age, Tutankhamun died suddenly. Modern analysis of his mummy suggests he suffered from multiple ailments, including a genetic bone disease and malaria. A leg fracture shortly before his death may have become infected, potentially leading to his early demise. His death threw Egypt into chaos. With no heir to the throne, his wife Ankhesenamun made a desperate plea to the Hittite king, requesting one of his sons as a husband to continue the royal line. The prince was sent but never arrived, likely murdered on his journey to Egypt. Instead, the elderly I, Tutankhamun's advisor, took the throne, ruling for just 4 years before General Horemheb claimed power, ending the 18th dynasty. The end of the 18th dynasty marked a turbulent shift in ancient Egyptian history, forever altering its course. Tutankhamun's death was rushed, his tomb hastily prepared. Unlike other pharaohs who spent decades preparing their final resting places, his burial was completed in just 70 days. This haste, however, would prove fortunate for history. While other royal tombs were looted over the centuries, Tutankhamun's smaller, hidden tomb would remain largely untouched for over 3,000 years. The political landscape of Egypt changed dramatically after his death. Horemheb, upon taking the throne, began systematically erasing all traces of the Amarna period, including references to Tutankhamun. The boy king was forgotten, his name absent from king lists, his monuments usurped. Time buried his memory as surely as the desert sands buried his tomb. But history had not finished with Tutankhamun. In 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter made the discovery that would change our understanding of ancient Egypt forever. The tomb's contents, preserved for over 3 millennia, provided unprecedented insights into royal life, religious beliefs, and artistic achievements of ancient Egypt. The treasures found within his tomb tell us more about his reign than any historical document. The thousands of artifacts, from his golden death mask to his tiny childhood throne, paint a picture of a young ruler living in unimaginable luxury. His war chariots, boomerangs, and archery equipment suggest he enjoyed hunting and military training, while delicate jewelry and cosmetic items speak to the sophistication of his court. The most telling artifacts are perhaps the walking sticks found in his tomb, over 130 of them, supporting modern medical analysis that the young king suffered from a bone disorder that made walking difficult. This physical weakness might explain why his military campaigns were led by his generals rather than himself, contrary to pharaonic tradition. Tutankhamun's story is one of tragedy and triumph. Though his reign was brief and his immediate legacy quickly erased, his rediscovery has made him the most famous of all Egyptian pharaohs. His magnificent treasures, preserved through millennia, offer an unparalleled window into the golden age of ancient Egypt, while his mummy continues to yield secrets about his life and times. The boy king who struggled to walk in life has strode through history with unprecedented power, capturing the imagination of millions and teaching us more about ancient Egyptian civilization than any other pharaoh. Through him, we glimpse the glory of ancient Egypt, its political intrigues, its religious devotion, and its magnificent artistry. Tutankhamun may have died young, but his legacy has achieved the immortality that all pharaohs sought, but few achieved. In the end, perhaps that is the greatest triumph of the boy king. Not the battles won or the temples restored during his brief reign, but the window his tomb has opened into the ancient world, allowing us to reach across thousands of years and touch the golden age of Egyptian civilization. In death, as in life, Tutankhamun continues to reign as one of history's most fascinating rulers, his story eternally preserved in gold and mystery.